Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
So I work at a grocery store and it was pretty slow today. I was super bored and had like 2 hours left in my shift, so I was wandering around and I was looking for my friend, who was also my co-worker. Right as I was rounding the corner to the produce section, I heard people arguing near the winery and a crying baby. Me, being curious and bored, decided to check it out. Well, turns out it was my friend. He was arguing with this woman with an oversized baby bag and a stroller with what looked to be a pretty irritated baby. I walked up to them to try and mediate the situation, and this woman looked to be around her mid-30s. She had obnoxiously and obviously dyed blonde hair and a horrible tan. She looked super irritated when she saw me and rolled her eyes when I started to talk to her. Turns out she had been stealing wine. She was stuffing wine bottles in her baby bag and even hid one behind her baby, which explains its crying. Laying on top of a wine bottle can't be comfortable. My friend had caught her stuffing one of the bottles in her bag, which led to their little argument. When I finally got the context to the situation, I then asked the lady to return the bottles since it was obvious she wasn't going to buy them. Then she started to get irate. "Ma'am, you need to return these wine bottles. They are store property." "No," my friend tells her. "You need to give these back. I caught you in your attempt to steal them and you need to put them back. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I basically own this store. You wouldn't have jobs without me." At this point, the situation was escalating way too much and other people were beginning to look at us. Eventually, my manager came out to see what was up. My friend and I were in the middle of explaining the situation to him, and the lady took off. She left her stroller behind, by the way. My manager radioed our store security and they stopped her at the entrance. I had to push her stroller over to where the guards were keeping her. When the crazy woman realized she wasn't going to get away, she took one of the bottles in her bag and threw it at the manager. It barely missed his head and it was pretty bad. The security guards had to tackle her to stop her from getting out another bottle. One of my other co-workers called the police and my manager was so mad he was screaming at the lady. I don't know if he will be pressing charges against her or not. I was put in charge of taking the rest of the wine bottles and had to put them away. My friend was trying to calm down her still crying baby and the police eventually came and they are in the process of arresting her. Update. So my manager is pressing charges. Child Protective Services was called on that lady, but it turns out the baby wasn't even her kid, it was her niece. She was supposed to be babysitting and took her baby to the store. The baby's mother, the entitled woman's sister, apologized profusely to my manager and explained everything. She said her sister was a known alcoholic and substance addict, but had been telling her and her family that she had been clean for 3 years and that she had gone to rehab. I genuinely couldn't believe what I was hearing. I personally would never leave my baby with a known abuser, no matter how clean they claim to be, but that's just my opinion. The mother told us that she's a single mom and she had to work overtime and needed someone to watch her daughter for a couple of hours. Her regular sitter couldn't come and her parents were on vacation, so she decided to take a chance on her sister, and she had no idea that she was this unhinged. The entitled woman was arrested for shoplifting and attempted assault with a deadly weapon. My manager is pressing charges for emotional distress. Child Protective Services let the mother keep the baby, but I'm pretty sure they are going to be conducting a search on the baby's living conditions. I feel so bad for her, honestly. My friend and I were also reprimanded for confronting a shoplifter because that does go against store policy, and he unleashed a bunch of chaos by doing so. I understand why we aren't allowed to, but I couldn't in good conscience watch an unhinged woman possibly endanger a baby. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. First off, I really like small women. Part of it is my mom and a number of the women in my family are short. If I can find a woman who can even slightly compare to my mom, I will be the luckiest man on earth and live up to the Lilo and Stitch line, tiny but fierce. The story. About 10 to 15 years ago, I was in college in Fort Lauderdale. Made spring break fun easy to have. So I decided to go down to the beach to do some photography homework. And I ended up finishing near a bar a friend of mine worked at who told me about a nice scotch they had at the bar. So I got a glass, went across the street to sit on a wave wall, drink my scotch and read my book. After about an hour or so, I was finishing my scotch and thinking of heading out. A very lovely young lady approached and sat down beside me. Now, to let you all understand, let me describe her. She was about 5'3", long red hair, petite and really pretty. Her whole outfit, makeup and look didn't scream children at all. We got talking and I decided to hang out a bit longer to see how things would go. After a bit, I offered to grab us some drinks, but when she asked for a daiquiri, I figured to cover myself and asked if she had some ID. She was young looking enough to get me in trouble if I didn't check. So she pulled out an ID saying she had turned 21 last month and handed it over to show the bartender. I came back about 15 minutes later with our drinks. The bartender had no problem with the ID, and we continued chatting. But as things kept going and she continued to drink her drink, something started to come off as wrong. I started to think she was underage, but as the ID passed muster with the bartender, I wasn't too worried as a fake ID was on her if something came up. Entered the entitled people. As we were finishing our drinks, up walks a couple. Couldn't be more stereotypical tourists if they had actually used that white stuff on their noses. And they approach the girl.
"Hey honey, where did you go? We've been looking everywhere for you,"
the lady told her. The man, seeing the ubiquitous red Solo cup, asked, "What's that you drinking?" "I don't know, some sort of strawberry slushy type drink he got me." She points at me. The man grabs the cup and sniffs it.
"This is alcoholic. You gave your daughter an alcoholic drink. How dare you? I am calling the cops."
The lady then grabs her daughter by the arm and yanks her behind herself.
"You jerk, you probably drugged it, didn't you? You'll go directly to jail for giving a 15-year-old girl a drugged drink."
Obviously, on hearing that, the pucker factor went to 11. I mean, I knew I did nothing wrong, but still, 15? I tried to explain about the fake ID. I was about to get on them about her whole look when I was cut off with,
"Our daughter would never do something like that."
She then turns to her daughter and asks,
"Would you, honey?"
The girl shakes her head no. At this point, I figured discretion is a better part of valor and sit back down, hoping the bartender would remember the ID I showed him. I proceeded to sit and ignore the haranguing they were spewing and waited for the cops. I also noticed what looked like her ID dropped in the sand behind the wall. This is important for later. A few minutes later, the cop arrived and it turned out she was a D&D friend with me and a bartender, and she had a cop partner with her. The parents, dragging their daughter, immediately rush up to the cops, spinning their tale of how I tried to drug their daughter with an alcoholic drink, and when they mentioned my fake ID excuse, their daughter actually opens her purse and offers to let them search it. After the cop pulls them aside to get their statement, the cop partner of my friend approaches me with a very conflicted look. We had met a couple of times before and got along good. But this was pretty serious of a situation. Before he even said something, I asked him to lean over the wall and pointed to the fake ID. After he retrieved the ID and examined it, I explained my side of the story. After my explanation, he took a closer look at the girl's whole look and his eyes nearly popped out of his head at how wrong and tricky it was for a child. The partner pulled my cop friend aside where they had a brief discussion before they arrested all three of them. The daughter for a fake ID and the parents for child endangerment, I think. We all heard later at the next D&D game that they were all held for the entire 48 hours, had their vacation ruined, and ended up with some major fines and a call to their state's DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services. Ever since then, if my spidey sense goes off, I'm out of there. Hope you all enjoyed my weird experience. Quick intro. This was a funny story that had happened to me a few years ago. My parents are one of the founders of a resort and is chairman of the board of directors. I have sat in a few of the meetings, so everyone knows that I'm the boss's son. I got homeschooled, so the majority of my friends are basically senior staff and people in the board. Pretty sad, huh? The cast is me, Noah. I look a lot younger than my age, and being 5'7" doesn't help. Dad and mom, my fiance Julia, my sister Emma, and the manager Jack. And also, of course, the crazy lady Karen. I was on vacation with Julia and Emma. Julia and Emma were staying at my dad's resort for a week or two because we were visiting my mom. As we entered the resort, I noticed the parking lot was packed. It was midsummer, and saw a few cars roaming around looking for parking spots. My family has a few private parking spots, and I noticed that his car wasn't here, but my mother's car was. As I walked to the reception, most of the staff know who I am. One of the staff working saw me and walked over to greet me. There were quite a people in line waiting to check in. Ma'am, he means my mom is currently in a meeting. Would you like me to bring your luggage to your room? Yeah, thanks. Julia kept a bag that had our swim clothes in. Sometime later, after a bit of swimming, we went to the restaurant to eat lunch. I had put on a blue shirt that was still in my gray swim trunks. The clothing looked similar to the uniform that the waiters were wearing. They were almost identical, except the only difference was that it didn't have the word staff on it. This'll come in handy later. While we were chatting in a restaurant, I heard some lady say, "Hey you!" She was saying it rather rudely from somewhere behind me. I first thought it was just someone trying to get the attention of a waiter, so I continued chatting and eating with Julia and Emma. As I was chugging down some ginger ale after regretting trying my sister-in-law's food, which she purposely did not tell me was pretty spicy, she knows I don't handle spicy food well and probably never will. Can anyone else relate? Someone suddenly roughly grabbed my shoulder from behind and I almost choked on my soda, spitting it all over my sister. Straight up karma, I gotta say. Ew, gross, was Emma's response while my fiancé stood straight up and was about to ask me if I was alright, but here comes you-know-who. Karen interrupting my sweet fiancé. Babe, are you? Hey, I've been trying to get your attention for a while now, Karen yelled out. Me being someone who doesn't get mad that easily, looked up and asked her politely, "Do you need anything, ma'am?" "Why are you eating with the guests and not doing your stupid job?" Karen said. I caught on pretty quickly and knew that she thought I was a staff from what I was wearing. But I was getting a little annoyed from how much she was yelling at me while she was a foot away from me. "Ma'am, I don't work here." I tried saying that. "Shut up, I'm a VIP here." Karen continued yelling and I continued to talk calmly to Miss Loudmouth while raising my voice a little. "Excuse me, I don't work here." But she slaps me. "Don't you use that tone with me, brat." As she slapped me, her long nails cut into my cheek, leaving a long cut and started to bleed. My fiancé almost went pale seeing as blood started to drip off my face. My sister immediately started to call our mother to come. The manager was walking over when he heard Karen yelling, but then broke into a run and hurried over when he saw Karen slap me. "Ma'am, no, are you alright?" Jack had said. Jack was someone who has worked for the resort for a few years, so he was pretty casual with me. My fiancé had put a piece of napkin on my cheek to try to stop the bleeding. "Are you the manager? I want this staff fired. He is so unprofessional. I don't know why you hired an idiot." Karen pointed at me and spoke as if she was the owner. "Ma'am, he doesn't work here." Jack started explaining. "You're trying to cover for him? I want you fired as well." I never knew someone's face could get as red as a tomato until that day. I saw my mother running over with 2 security guards, and when she saw my fiancé holding a blood-red napkin against my face and Karen yelling at me, I thought she was going to explode as she rushed over to me. My sister had informed our mother about what was happening and what Karen had done. My mother almost yelled, "What on earth happened? Guards, arrest her." "What do you mean arrest me? Who are you to do that?" Karen was struggling in the guard's hands. "I am the owner. You dare to slap my son?" My god, the face Karen made when she heard those lines, I won't ever forget it. She was as white as snow, while her eyes and mouth were wide open. After she was taken away, some of the other customers started clapping. My mother ran up to me to see my face, and she spoiled me when I was younger and was always defensive of me, as if she was a mother protecting her cub. She was the one who had me do homeschooling after she was told I was getting bullied in primary/middle school. After we had taken care of the cut on my face, which I ended up needing stitches for, no worries, the scar faded. My mother told me that Karen had been charged with second-degree assault and will be spending the following months in jail. I'm 38, my wife is 33, and her daughter, my stepdaughter, is 11. I've been married to my wife for 3 years now, together for 4. I met her daughter when she was 7 and married my wife when she was 8. This is getting confusing, so my daughter can be Millie. My wife got divorced when Millie was 6. Her ex cheated. But they still have a decent cordial relationship and my wife doesn't badmouth Millie's bio dad in front of Millie. My wife has mostly full custody, but her bio dad gets Millie 1 weekend a month. Millie loves her bio dad, but they are not very close anymore. She doesn't remember a lot of when her dad lived with her, and she doesn't see him often. So it's more of a formal relationship. He gets her ice cream and they watch movies, and basically she has a lot of fun when she sees him. But I'm the dad who comforts her when she has nightmares and listens to her chatter every day about the stuff that happened in school. I love her very much and think of her as my daughter. Until recently though, she was still calling me by my first name. I didn't mind, but a few weeks ago she told me that her friend said it was weird that she doesn't call her dad dad. That she had to explain that I'm not actually her dad and it was awkward. I sympathized with her and I said that sucks. Then I told her that if she wants, she can of course call me dad. I didn't think about this very much, it just seemed obvious. But she was very happy and now she only calls me daddy. My wife's ex came over for Thanksgiving because my wife wanted Millie to have both her parents there for once. I wasn't super happy, but I was okay with it. Her ex heard Millie calling me dad and questioned Millie in an upset way, and she said that I told her that me and him are both her dads. He got really angry and started screaming at me, saying that I'm not her dad and she should know that. Later my wife was upset with me, saying that I should have thought about how Millie's relationship with her real dad would suffer before I told Millie something like this. She says I'm selfish and just want to feel like a real dad, and even if Millie doesn't call me dad, it's not a big deal. Am I the jerk here? And now with some comments on a post, someone saying you're not that jerk. Is anyone taking into account how Millie feels? She wants to call you dad. You're just as much if not more of a dad than her real dad. Maybe you could have run it by your wife to let her know, but it's not some end of the world thing. If Millie wants to call 2 people her dad, then no one should stop her. Another commenter adds, as far as daughter, stepdad and bio dad go, I'd say nobody is a jerk. If daughter wants to call her stepdad dad, then by all means, it's her choice. The fact that the bio dad is upset about it is understanding though. If he's a reasonable person, he will get over it in time. But even if his knee-jerk reaction isn't warranted, it's still understandable. The only weird one here is the mom for not being empathetic to the other 2 parties involved, besides her ex. A third commenter goes with, not the jerk and sorry your wife is being ridiculous. You didn't tell Millie to call you dad, you gave her permission to if she wanted to. Blocking her from saying that to keep her at arm's length isn't going to make her closer to her bio dad, and she's not going to be confused about having 2 dads. Your wife and her ex seem really caught up in propping up his ego/identity as Millie's father, when her calling you dad shouldn't impact that. Do they want her to feel distant from you and awkward at home? Very weird behavior.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.